What's up, everybody? It's Retro JoJo again. Today, I want to do a little bit of a shorter video because I've had a lot going on, but I want to talk about some Star Wars locations or planets, rather, that I would like to visit. So, at number 5, we have Endor. Endor was one of my favorites in Return of the Jedi, favorite locations. It's where a lot, the action takes place. And then you have the space battle above Endor with the Death Star 2, and the battle between Luke and Vader takes place there in front of the Emperor. And then slash, not really necessarily a battle with the Emperor, but the reason I would want to visit it, though, would be because of its lush forest, its huge trees, and they just go on forever, it seems like. And then you also can't forget about the Ewoks. The Ewoks are cute little fur balls that just, melt anybody's heart. So, and they're also cousins, distant cousins to the Wookiees, like Chewbacca. So I would want to visit it for that and to see their village and, be a part of the magic that is Endor and the Ewoks, and just ride a speeder bike through the trees and stuff without crashing. So yeah, that would be why I would want to visit there. And like I said, it was a good thing in the movies. It was a great locale. They just knocked it out of the park with that in Return of the Jedi. So at number 4, we have Hoth. I know a lot of people can't stand the cold, but I like being cold. I don't like being real hot. I don't like getting hot. I like being cold. And I would want to visit it again. That's where a lot of the battle takes place, and it seems kind of like a cop out that I pick where a lot of the battles take place. But I would want to visit Hoth just because it's lush ice, snow planet. I mean, it's freezing temperatures. They have almost like bunkers built into the landscape to keep themselves. They have to stay warm or you will die. So, and there's tauntauns, there's wampas, which I would like to see one, but I wouldn't want to be near one because of what happened to Luke in Empire Strikes Back. So, but other than that, seems like a good location. Drive a snow speeder around, get in that AT-AT, and feel like you're part of the Galactic Empire. So that would be my reasoning behind that. And at number 3, we have Mustafar. Mustafar. Some people say Mustafar. I think it's Mustafar. And you say, why in the world would you pick that planet for somewhere you want to visit? And I would say mainly because that's where the epic battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin takes place, and ultimately results in him, being, cut apart, dismembered, if you will, and turned into Vader, burned to a crisp by the lava. He was too close to it when he, fell to Obi-Wan. And also, that's where the Separatists were, hiding out after Obi-Wan took on Grievous in Revenge of the Sith and won, of course. But also because that's later in the EU, the expanded universe. That's where Vader's castle is. But I think that he has another one somewhere else. But that's where he meditates. That's where he can take his armor off. That's where he can be in the Bacta. And they actually put that in Rogue One, so I thought it was cool. He actually, can't remember that officer's name. He was like a high-ranking officer. But he goes there to see Vader, and Vader's being basically about to come out of the Bacta tank and be put back together, so to speak, and then where he can meet with him. But he sees Vader that way, and Vader doesn't, you can tell he doesn't like that. He sees him as this, shell of a man who's being put back together right before his eyes. He's not this big hulking, menacing man that the Emperor wanted him to seem like in front of the the public with, because of the propaganda that he had to put out, where Vader, he had Vader's fist in the 501st Legion, after Order 66, so that listened to Vader's all of them did listen to Vader, but Vader, that was called Vader's fist. That was his, and I believe they wore the clone armor the longest. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Some of my friends out there and other people, anybody, just let me know if I'm wrong about that. But I would like to visit Mustafar to see Vader's castle, because it is a very cool sight, on this lava-ridden planet in the EU. So very interesting. And at number 2 would be a complete shift from Mustafar, which would be Naboo. I would want to visit Naboo. It's just beautiful countryside. That's where Padme grew up. It's where the Trade Federation invades. And I thought in episode 1 that was very interesting, because you have this lush, green, beautiful planet with these, beautiful creatures. They're kind and timid, and for the most part. And then you have the Trade Federation invading, right before our eyes, and it's just mechanized and machines, and they're flying overhead, and the people are scared, and there's battle droids in the streets, arresting, the Queen's Royal Guards, and it's very, very kind of like yin and yang, if you will, like good and bad mixing. You see, it's beautiful, but then there's, just tyranny and right before our eyes. So that's the reason I would want to visit there. Maybe see the Gungans, and Jar Jar. Everybody hates Jar Jar. I just think he's okay. I think he's all right. A lot of people want it straight cut when they watch Star Wars, or when anything Star Wars media, they want it. Some of I think us older fans, or even people that are older than me, maybe they watched it when it come out, they only like the originals. There's some people like that. They don't like the prequels. They don't like the sequels. Not a big fan of the sequels. I do like the prequels some, and I definitely love the original trilogy. And I like some of the new media that they put out, but we'll save that for another video. But I do think that it's just very interesting, very pretty planet. And like I said, it's just, when you see, and I want to mention this before I move on, if you see it in Attack of the Clones, the deleted scenes, they actually visit Padme's family, her mother, father, and then I think she had some siblings as well, if I'm not mistaken, in the scene. But Anakin's with her, and you get to see just how pretty the streets are and everything. It's kind of like Paris. It's very, very interesting. I think that's what Lucas was going for. But what I was saying, I want to go back to something though. What I was saying about a lot of people don't like the characters like that, like Jar Jar. You know how Captain Tarple says, "You said in big doo doo this time." How it, but it's meant to be funny. It's for the kids. It come out, right at, I think it was either 99 or 2000. I think it was 99. I think that's right. And there's a new generation of Star Wars fans, and now we have another new generation with Disney. So I think putting comic relief characters in there is a good thing. And we had comic relief in the original trilogy. It was a little more straight cut, cut clean and to the point. You had 3PO, you had R2, even some of the Chewbacca moments, I think they're funny to me. They still have that comedic feel. But anyway, I digress. I'm getting off chasing rabbits. So moving on to number 1. And a lot of people are going to say, especially if someone knows me, they're, you grew up in the country for a long time. It's kind of weird but I do like both. I like, like with Naboo, you have countryside. But with Coruscant, you have Coruscant. Some people say Coruscant. I don't say Coruscant. I say Coruscant, like a croissant, I guess. But it's the capital. It's this big mecca that is just almost like New York, but a whole planet of New York. And there's so much with Coruscant that I could go into and make a whole video about Coruscant. There's the 1313 level, which is like, excuse me, I had an itch on my eye. Sorry, everybody. I couldn't wait to do that. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying, there's a 1313 level, which is like your lower slums, and they're just kind of thrown there. And then there's guards that, watch all these people in poverty and make sure they keep crime down and stuff. So I thought it's very interesting. There's so many levels. It goes deep. It's not just at the surface. The surface is kind of where everybody who prospers and the Jedi and politicians and stuff, and then a lot of politicians from different planets meet there with the Senate. It's kind of like what we have as far as the U.S. goes. You have your Senate, your House of Representatives, you have your president, vice president, which Palpatine was kind of like that, and as is to what we have in our society, in our world. So different leaders and things like that. And I would want to visit there because a lot of the great games that I played over the years, one of them comes to mind being, or one or two that come to mind would be in Star Wars Obi-Wan on the Xbox. There's some levels that take place in Coruscant. Not as good a graphics as the one that I want to mention next, though, which was Star Wars Bounty Hunter. For the time, that game, it looked great. There were ships flying around the higher up that you went. There were a ton of different corridors you go through and stuff, and each one looked kind of different. I thought they did a really good job representing that in that game. But anyhow, there are a lot of reasons. It's just craziness. It's like rush hour traffic in Atlanta, Georgia. But it's ships. They're just flying past each other, barely scraping by, missing one another, crashing into one another. There's crime. There's good things. There's, high rises, beautiful scenery. There's a lot of reasons why I would want to visit there. Maybe even talk to Palpatine himself when he was in power. I don't know. But anyway, and I loved him in the sequel, not the sequel, excuse me, the prequels. I got a little confused there. I have to excuse that. But in the prequels, they just, for the time, they knocked it out of the park with how they represented, that particular planet. So, and all the things that took place there. It was, you had his rise, the Emperor's rise to power in episode 1. He was just kind of under the surface, and Chancellor Valorum was a chancellor that was in power, and Amidala gives it up to, says she takes a vote of no confidence in Valorum, and that was her and their being everyone involved in its biggest mistake, because look what he became, what he was hiding under the surface. And an interesting fact about Palpatine, I thought was very interesting, was he was actually using a Sith technique. He was hiding a Sith form. He was using, I believe it was a form of Sith alchemy that he used to hide his true form, to hide that he was a Sith, to blind them, And it's kind of like in life, sometimes you get a little blinded to the truth. That's what I believe Lucas was, getting at with making it that way. So, but anyhow, I want to move on to some honorable mentions. Number 1 being the Death Star and the Death Star 2. We all know both of the Death Stars were destroyed in Episode 4, New Hope, and Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. However, I would still want to visit them. You had, your dark colors, the gray corridors. You had, the floors were kind of like a matte black kind of color. It was all very bland, And then in contrast, you had stormtroopers walking the corridor, so you had this dark, macabre type of look to it. And then you had, whiteout markers. Here I am, stormtroopers. So very interesting, and it would interest me to, see Vader's meditation chamber / that's where he could take his mask off again, and also with Vader's castle on Mustafar, and I believe he had another locale where he could do said thing, to see the Grand Moff Tarkin, and where the laser was fired at Alderaan with Princess Leia watching. Those were her people, and they were destroyed. See the super lasers, that were in both of them, and see the differences, and where they were constructing Death Star 2. I think that would be interesting, to see just how it was made. I don't know. I feel like that would be very interesting. And at number 2 for honorable mention would be Tatooine. Now, a lot of people say, why would you want to visit Tatooine? It's a slaver planet. There's a lot of slavery there. But it's also where they have the pod races. One of the places they have pod races. That's Watto was there. Jabba, that was where he lived. He wasn't from there. He was from Nal Hutta, but still, Gardula lived there until she met her demise at the hands of Jango Fett when he took on her, I think it was a crate dragon. Just a lot of things. That's where Anakin grew up until he was, I believe, like 9 or 10. That was supposed to be in the first movie. And that's why, Yoda says he's too old, and all the rest of the council members, he's too old to stand, test, do the trials and become a Padawan or an apprentice. And Qui-Gon already had one, but then we all know what happened to Qui-Gon on his duel with Darth Maul, him and Obi-Wan's duel with Darth Maul rather. And I just thought it was that's where Qui-Gon thought he had found the chosen one. Sebulba was there. Also, another thing that I would mention about Tatooine, that's also where Luke grew up. That's where he ended up growing up. That's where and there's only moisture farming there, which is a very tricky business. But you have the Mos Eisley Cantina, Mos Eisley Spaceport. That's where Luke meets Chewie and Han, along with Obi-Wan Kenobi, or some people, as they call him in that movie, Ben Kenobi, because that's what he went by. The old Nickelback song Rockstar Couture, change your name. That's what he did. He looked different. He was older, and then he changed his name to Ben. Ben Kenobi instead of Obi-Wan Kenobi, because he couldn't go by that anymore because Vader might discover where Luke is. So he didn't want that. Probably took some advice from Qui-Gon, I would imagine, because at the end of episode 3, that's where, if you're a fan, that's Yoda tells him to tell him how to, talk to someone who's learned to talk with others from the netherworld of the Force, which is Qui-Gon. Obi-Wan knew who it was without Yoda even telling him, because he just felt it, through the Force. So I thought it was, all of it ties together. That's where a lot of the story is kind of built around, and just all the things being made out of sand. The homes, the little homes, the bigger stuff like homes and stuff like that. You had land speeders. You had, you could hunt some womp rats like Luke used to do for in spare time, in his spare time rather. Just all around, I would like to visit it. See the Jawas, maybe see the Tusken Raiders. Maybe they wouldn't, get me. But there's a lot of dangerous creatures on Tatooine, but I would take my chances with it. But anyhow, moving on to the last honorable mention, and this one might take some people by surprise if they say, I don't know what planet that is. But if you play Jedi Fallen Order, the video game, which I've played it multiple times and beaten. Now I want to play I also want to eventually get around to playing Jedi Survivor. They just didn't release it for the modern consoles we have. They released it for the new ones. It's a cash grab, I would say. But you visit Dathomir. Don't know if you're doing the new one. Haven't played it yet. Like I said, didn't want to spoil it. Didn't watch full gameplays that are already out of it yet. But you visit Dathomir, which, if you know where Dathomir is, that's Darth Maul and Savage Opress, their homeworld. Also, I think Asajj Ventress was under the Night Sisters. The women are normally Night Sisters, and the men are, the ones with the horns. The women are normally bald, and the men are like Darth Maul and Savage Opress, if you know what they look like. Just in the game, it's very it looks kind of barren. There's some wildlife there, but it's kind of barren. There's a bunch of creatures. Can't remember all of them that you run into, but that is where the infamous Rancors are originally from, is Dathomir. And that's how, you know, another way that Darth Maul, I believe, was so strong, because you run into one of those, it's, you know, it's do or die. You either you fight it and you don't get eaten, or you lose and you get eaten or dismembered and then eaten, because they would do that sometimes too. They rip their prey apart. Um, and so very interesting. Would love to visit there, see that. And then there's, you know, they have all the in between cracks and crevices in the game. I don't know about, you know, there's not much other media other than I believe it's in the Clone Wars when they show Darth Maul going back to be reassembled. You know, as we know, he survives as being cut in half by Obi-Wan just through pure rage, Sith rage. He survives, and he's put together by Mother Talzin again. But it would be interesting to see all the there's textures in the game, there's inner workings and things like that I thought would be interesting to see. You know, like the text, there's pictures on the walls, there's where they do, like the Night Sisters do rituals and stuff, and you have to find those areas. They're not just out in the open, you have to find them. They're secrets in the game. But I just thought I'd mention it because it would be interesting to see that. The other beasts that I can't remember their names right now, I haven't played it in a while, and the Rancors, and see where Darth Maul's from. You fight a bunch of Dathomirians, which I believe are actually Zabraks. I believe I said that wrong. Not Dathomirians, they're Zabraks. And there's actually a Zabrak, a couple, I believe, Jedi. So it's not just, you know, but I will say this. All Zabrak, excuse me, if I have that right. Let me know if I have that right. They're supposed to go through a tattooing process where they have it, you know, the markings, whichever markings that are, I think they're chosen for them or something like that by the Night Sisters. If anybody knows any more about that, let me know down in the comments. You know, there may be somebody that knows a little bit more about that than I do, about a little bit of expanded universe knowledge. I know quite a bit, but I don't know everything. I don't think anybody knows everything about Star Wars, but maybe they do. But I think it's very cool that they choose certain markings and stuff, and normally they're like yellow skin, kind of pale looking, if not yellow. But Darth Maul, I may be wrong, but Darth Maul and Savage Opress, I know, are like blacked out. So Darth Maul chose, I know he did for sure, chose to be like tattooed completely. Like that was part of his descent into the dark side and into madness. He had to show just how far he'd come as a Sith, and that was one of the ways the markings were actually put over. If you remember, Darth Maul has like the black markings; those are typically put just on the skin. But Darth Maul had red put over black, and then more red, black, excuse me, on top of the red. That's how far he wanted to go to show his devotion to the Sith, because you have the black and the darkness, and then you have the red, which, if you know anything about kyber crystals, I'm getting kind of off again. We're almost at the end of this video, actually, so I'm just talking about some other things, just Star Wars knowledge to share with you guys. But if you know anything about the kyber crystals, they normally take what the Jedi would use, a colored crystal, and they make it bleed. That's how they make red ones. They make it bleed with their hatred and their rage and their just destructive, you know, nature. So that's where he's kind of showing his devotion that, yes, I have made my kyber crystal bleed and I'm completely engulfed in darkness. That's what he's, you know. But as far as the horns and everything, I've heard people say, you know, he looks evil. That's what they have. The males have horns that come out of. It's not just a Darth Maul thing. It's the male species of that planet. That's what they look like. So that's how George Lucas wanted it. And I think he created one of the best monsters in, you know, a physical form, not a creature, but a physical form ever. Like, other than, well, Vader was human though. But as far as alien species, yeah, Darth Maul takes the cake to me. He's just, and then, you know, in later media, he goes back and forth. He's helping the rebels later, and then he fights Obi-Wan again, and then Obi-Wan, defeats him like with one strike in the Rebels show, I believe it is. And he falls in Obi-Wan's arms and says, forgive me kind of thing. And then he says, well, is he the chosen one? And he says, yes. And then he says, he'll avenge us type of thing. So he's telling, Obi-Wan, he wants to be avenged too. He realizes he was just led to betrayal over and over and over again, like many people deal with in the real world. I believe George Lucas really thought through Star Wars and his teams that he worked with. It wasn't just George. Even in the Clone Wars show comes to mind, not the new one, the original, the one that I used to watch growing up. It comes to mind. I may mess his name up. Forgive me if I do. Gennady Tartakovsky, or however you say it. I may have said that wrong. But he also worked on a lot of other shows that I thoroughly enjoyed, and his art style is cool with the Clone Wars. It was a little mini series. The shows, the TV windows would last about 7 minutes. You had commercials that made it, Lord, like maybe 15 or 20. But what I'm saying, there were other types of Star Wars media. And now we have Star Wars Visions, which I also thoroughly enjoy. We have a lot of other Star Wars media. But maybe I'll do that in the next video. You guys let me know. And also, I want to say before I sign off for this video, a shout out to my people at Ink Addiction. If you have any tattoo needs or piercing needs, go by all the locations, and you can check them out on Facebook. And I just want to say thanks to my artist personally, Lee Irvin. Love you, man. Thank you for all the work that you've done on me and the stuff that you'll continue to do. And I don't plan to go to anyone else. You rock, dude. So, and Stephanie, you're really cool. And everybody else, Dustin, stay with it, man. Stay with the work, and you're great too. Everybody at Ink Addiction. If you need anything, I recommend. I personally go to the Valdosta location, but Russ is an amazing artist. I've looked at other works of other artists. If I left anybody out, I don't remember all of your names. I'm sorry, but I have looked at their artwork, and it's fantastic. So if you need anything, just check them out for tattoo or piercing wise. This is Retro JoJo. I'm signing out for tonight. Peace, everybody. Rock on.